Right. So good morning, everyone. My name is Dhananjay Kumar, and I am a developer evangelist for Infragistics. And I welcome each one of you in today's webinar. Today, topic of today's webinar is getting started with Angular. So this webinar is mainly we plan this webinar in keeping in mind that if you are new to Angular and if you start to learn about Angular from beginning, then this webinar should be a help to you. If you have any difficulty hearing my voice or following the script we are sharing, just let us know using a Q&A panel. Great. So this is agenda of today's webinar. We are going to learn about a little bit about Angular CLI and Ignite UI using Ignite UI CLI and Ignite UI toolbox. Then we'll create our first component in Angular. Then we'll learn about data bindings. Then we'll learn about component communication. We'll see how to use a little bit of directives like ng-for or ng-if. And if we are left with time after that, we will look into pipes and HTTP service as well, provided if we are left with some time. People who are new to this webinar, we are going to learn about a little bit of Ignite UI CLI, and Ignite UI for Angular toolbox in VS Code. So we'll see that in action and try to understand how that can help you in speeding up your development process altogether. All right, so people who are still coming in, and if you are not very sure that who is bringing you this webinar, so this free webinar you are attending this free webinar from Infragistics, and Infragistics is a company which builds tools and controls which helps you to create your application faster and create highly performance oriented application for enterprise. So I strongly request you to go and check out infragistics.com where you can find wide array of our products. We have products for ASP.NET, for WPA, for Windows Forms. We have products for if you want to design something, we have products for that, and then for reporting, Report Plus, etc. So there are great products we build, and you should check at infragistics.com. Since today most of you are Angular developer, we would be focusing on Ignite UI for Angular, which is our offering for Angular developers. So Ignite UI is a JavaScript jQuery based library, and you can use Ignite UI anywhere. You can use it with ASP.NET MVC, you can use it with in plain HTML application, or anywhere, any kind of web application. We have another flavor for Ignite UI called Ignite UI for Angular, and Ignite UI for Angular, as you see, is a material-based native Angular components. Now we have more than 50, and you can check that at infragistics.com/products Ignite UI Angular. And Ignite UI for Angular helps you to build your application faster, and again, those applications would have better performance, and you can do all development using NPM. So today I'll cover a little bit of Ignite UI for Angular as well for you. As you see on the screen, these are the components available in Ignite UI for Angular. So before I go into our webinar, let me just walk you through our websites which can be helpful for you. So this is infragistics.com website. Here you can see that we have different products line for design and development. These options are available. Then if you are a UX guy, these options are available to you. Then for business teams and all, so you can go and check any product line of your choice. And here you see that if you click on Ignite UI for Angular, you would come to Ignite UI for Angular page, which if I can bring and show you here. So this is Ignite UI for Angular, and you see there is Ignite UI for Angular have, as I shown you in the slide, that more than 50 material-based components which you can use. You click on any of these components, for example, in data grid, and here you can find all documentation and everything. So, for example, data grid has all these features like virtualization. You can do inline editing, pagination, filtering, sorting, etc. And if you want to learn about filtering, just click here. You'll be navigated to filtering, and here you can read the documentation, or you can play around that by clicking by opening that documentation sample in Stack Blitz. So I'm giving you introduction that how powerful, how easy for any developer, doesn't matter whether you are beginner level developer or senior developer in Angular, to learn Ignite UI for Angular and using their project. So today during webinar, when we reach a certain point, I'll show you how easy it is to integrate Ignite UI in your application. Keep in mind, Ignite UI has another flavor as well, which we call it Ignite UI for JavaScript, and you can use that with React, you can use that with jQuery, you can use that with vanilla HTML, or you can use that with ASP.NET MVC, or anywhere you wish to. Anyway, so let us start our webinar today, where we are going to do a lot of live coding. So as my introduction, my name is Dhananjay Kumar. I work as developer evangelist. I'm a Microsoft MVP, and if you have any query related to this webinar, you can reach me at dkumar. You can reach me at dkumar@infragistics.com. Great. So we are going to learn about Angular. Now, what is Angular? Angular is, if you are fairly new to Angular, just to let you know that, just to give you a simple definition, that Angular is used to create single-page web application. Now, what is single-page web application? In single-page web application, what happens, that whole DOM gets downloaded once from the server, and then only asynchronously you update certain section of DOM, and that is called that is single page web application. You can learn on internet more deep definition about it, and Angular empowers developers to build applications for browsers, for mobiles, for desktops. So this is Angular. Now what development environment we are going to use? We are going to use TypeScript to write our Angular application. You can use JavaScript also to write Angular application. Then we are going to use VS Code, and of course we'll use Node.js to do the NPM thing. And we are going to use Angular CLI to create Angular application. So when you start writing Angular application, and if you are very new to Angular, there are few things you need to keep in mind. That if you are using TypeScript, you need TS compiler. Okay. You need TS compiler. Next, what you need is, since it is a module, you need a module loader, and there are many options, but popularly people use Webpack, and then you use some testing framework, etc. Now, to configure all these together, like TypeScript compiler and then Webpack and testing framework, is kind of a little bit of tedious task. You should be knowing it, how to do that. But what Angular team has done, they have eased the task for you by wrapping all these tasks, and they have given you something called Angular CLI. Using Angular CLI, you can very easily create an Angular application, and that application will have all these things like TypeScript compiler, Webpack, testing framework, etc. configured, such that you can directly focus on writing your business application instead of doing the configuration part. Now, to work with Angular CLIs, you need to have Node.js, and you need to have Node.js installed. Okay, and if you have Node.js installed, what you need to do, you can go to cli.angular.com and you can install Angular CLI like this. So on your machine, first you need to install Angular CLI using npm. If you have already installed that, then to create a new application, you can use the command ng-new. What I have done, I have already created, I have already installed Angular CLI, and then to create a new application, I used ng-new, and you can give your application name, which is I'm giving, let us say, ng-new demo 1. When you do this, what would happen? So when you do this on command prompt, so if you are able to see my command prompt, see, if you do this ng-new demo 1, what it will do, it will create a new project called demo 1 for you, and also it will do all installation, dependency installation of that project. So once this command is done, what you got to do, you got to go inside that folder. So I'm already inside demo 1 folder, and as soon as I ran that command, that project got created, which I can show you here, and this project has everything configured and all the dependency installed what I need for my Angular application, to create my Angular application. Now to run a command, what I need to do, I need to just come here and say ng-serve. When I do that, it will run that application on port number 4200. Okay, so it will compile and it will run that application. So far we have just seen that how we can create a new Angular application using Angular CLI, ng-new demo 1. After that, cd demo 1, and then you can open that in Visual Studio Code like this command, and then you can run that application using ng-serve. So this is the basic thing you need to do to create your first application using Angular CLI. So here you see that I have run that command ng-serve, and here you are getting message that compiled successfully. Now if I go to localhost 4200, here I am getting that application running. Welcome to app. Now what next we are going to do, we are going to learn all these concepts like data binding and component communication in this application which we created using ng-new. Okay, so the first thing if you are very new to Angular, you need to understand is some concepts of Angular. So mainly Angular has these things like modules. Modules are like kind of, they are the container, they are collection of components, collection of services, collection of pipes, collection of directives, etc. Then Angular has components. Component is what you see on a screen. So when you run an Angular application and what is in front of you, what you can see is a component. Services are like kind of a singleton class. If there is only one object gets created for a service. So any kind of functionality which you need to use across components for example, login functionality or making call to an API, you may want to write that inside services. Then pipes are like they transform an input to the output. Then directives and binding. So we are going to cover them in detail. So here in Angular you have the directives are of 3 types. One is called a structure directive. What a structure directive does, that it changes the structure of your DOM. So for example, ng-for is a structure directive. What it does, it loops, it repeats a particular DOM element wherever you have applied it. Attribute directives changes attribute of DOM element. So if you have applied a color attribute directive on a DOM element, it will change color of that particular element. And components are a kind of directive which has its own template, which has its own view, and your user sees that component. Okay, so components are the most basic building block of an UI in an Angular application. An Angular application is a tree of Angular components. So you'll have many components when you create an Angular application. So let us go back to our project which we just created. And in this project, you see we created that using Angular CLI. Okay. And as you create that using Angular CLI, the first thing, let us see that how Angular application starts. We have something called index.html, and in index.html in line number 12 you can see there is something called app root. So app root is nothing but a component. Always your application may have any number of components, but it must have at least one component which will start your application. So here you see that in line number 12 what you see is a component called app root. Now from index.html, if you go and check main.ts, in main.ts you see that you are saying that in line number 11, hey, bootstrap a module for me, and that module name is app module, and you are importing that module from a file called app.module.ts here in line number 4. So on index.html, you are deciding which component should bootstrap, and in main.ts, you are deciding which module should bootstrap, and you are bootstrapping that here in line number 11. So your application can have any number of modules, but it must have at least one module, and in the same way, your application can have any number of components, but it must have at least one component, such that your user can see something. So here you see that you have app module, a bootstrap. Now if you go to app.module.ts file, in app.module.ts file you see that we are importing all those required things. Then we are importing in line number 4 app component. Right now we have only one component in our application and we are importing that. Whenever you have a component or a directive or a pipe, you need to pass that in the declaration array of your module. Since we have only one component and we are passing that in declaration array of our module, here app component, then if your module is using some other modules, you got to import that here, which we are right now it is using browser module, so we are importing that in imports array of app module. Then in line number 13, providers. So if your module is depending on some services, you need to pass that here in the providers array. And here in line number 14, you are saying that which component should be bootstrapped by this this module. Right now we do have only one component, which is called app component, and we are bootstrapping that in line number 14. And in this way you see that now if you go to app component.ts, here you see that how we are creating a component. It was created by Angular CLI. We are creating a class, exporting that, and we are decorating that class with a decorator called component. In that the selector name is app root. And if you remember, we are using this app root on index.html. Then each component has a template. You can have that template inline, or you can have template in an external HTML file. So here it is in external HTML file, and for that you use template URL. And the same way, each component can have its own style, even more than one style, and you pass that in style URL. So here you see that, and it has one property called title, and then in app.component.html we are just using this welcome to title. I'm going to cover this in detail. What is that double curly braces? And and in this way one component being created, and if I go here and change this to let us say Infragistics Ignite UI, as soon as I changed it, and if I come back here, you see that welcome to Infragistics Ignite UI, it has been changed. Next, what we are going to do, we are going to create a component very quickly. So let us go and add a component in our application. So to add a component, what you need to do, you can use Angular CLI also to add a component, but here I'm adding it manually. Let us say our component name is message. So the file convention is that if you are creating a component called foo component, then your file name should be foo.component.ts. I want to create a component called message component, so I'll say file name message.component.ts. Okay, and here first you create a class. Okay, and if your component name is foo component, then your class name should be capital F, capital C. So here I'll say message, export class message component. Okay, let me come here and do one thing. Right now I don't want any linting here. Okay, so here I'm saying export class message component, and to convert this class as a component, you need to put a decorator called component. Okay, and this decorator has many properties, but most important is selector. So you got to pass selector property, like how you are going to use this component. And again, convention is it should start with app, and since it is a message component, and it should be app message. Now each component has a template. Now that template could be an external HTML file, or that template could be inside right here. If you want to put it inside here itself, so use template. If it is in external file, use template URL. And then in template you can use a string literal like this, tilde sign, such that you can break a string in multiple lines. And we'll put some template here. Let us say we are saying H2. Okay, and now here you can have some data. I'm saying that my data is MES. Hello, I am message. Right? So here is this MES hello I am message. To use this, you need to use interpolation. I'll come to that. And this is the syntax of interpolation. So here we have created a component called message component. Now you can use this component in various ways. One way is that you can route to this, navigate to this component using Angular routing, which we are not covering right now in this webinar. Second is that you can use this component inside another component. So we and the component which is already a bootstrap component. So our component is app component here. Okay, we want to use that message component app component. So for that, what we'll do, we'll take this component from here and then go to app.component.html, and let us say we want to use that. So we'll say app message like that. Okay, but before using that, you need to add this component in the module as well. So go to app.module.ts, and here first you need to declare that. To declare, you import that. So here, since we are using, we created another component, we got to declare that. So let us revise it. We created a very simple component. To use it first in the module, we declared it and imported it, and then we are using it on the main component like any other HTML element. So if everything is correct, and if we go to the output, here you see that I have this hello I am message display. So right now in your application you have two components. If you go here and say, hey, inspect this element for me, here you see that you have app message, and on top of that you have app root. So here you have two components which we just created. So this is the way you can create your first component. Next we are going to cover data binding, and I'll give you some 30-second time. If you have any question, you can ask. After 30 seconds, we are going to start data binding in Angular. Next, we are going to cover data binding in Angular. So in Angular, there are three types of data binding. So when you say data binding, what exactly is data binding? Data binding means how data will flow from component class to component template. Data binding is how data will go from component class to HTML template. So as you saw there that when we had that title property or message property, and we are passing that to the template. So that is a type of data binding. So in Angular there are three types of data binding. First is interpolation. In interpolation, what you do, you pass data. It is a one-way data binding. You pass data from component to template to display it. Then you have event binding. Event binding means if there is some element on HTML, some element on your template, like for example button or something, and when user click on that button, user creates that event for you, and you want to capture that event, and you want to handle that event and call a function in the component class. In that case, you will use event binding. Syntax of event binding is a small bracket, and then your event name, and then you can call a function of TypeScript class. Third is property binding. If you want to, so in interpolation you display the data. However, in property binding, what we do that we set property of HTML of a DOM element with the property of component class. So that is called property binding. So these are the three bindings in Angular. First, let us see how they work, and then we'll come to two-way binding. Great. So here in message component, you see that I have this data and I'm displaying it here in line number 7. So that is called interpolation. Second, let us say we have a button here. Okay, and let us say that button is click me. And I want to call a function here. I have a function here, let us say hello. And we want to call this function Okay, so we want to call this function on click of this button, and we'll do that using event binding. So what Angular team has done, that for all popular events of DOM elements, they have wrapped that inside something called ng-zone, such that you can asynchronously use those events, and click is one of those things which is taken care by ng-zone. So I'll come here and say click, and what I want that, hey, call this click on click of this particular button called say hello. So this is your event binding, and if I go here, I should have a button. I should have a so here you see that I have button here, hello I message, and then this click me function F12, and if we click here in output, you see that from message component we are able to call that function. So this is called event binding. Third type of binding is called property binding. So for example, you have here, let us say height 100 property, and you want to set height of this button from that property. You use property binding, and syntax of that is a square bracket. Here you say style dot height dot px equal to height. And you see that height of this button has been changed to 100, which was has been changed to 100. So in this way, your property binding works. So just to summarize, there are three types of binding. Interpolation. What interpolation does, it is a one-time data binding. It displays data from your TypeScript class on the template. Then event binding. In event binding, you capture the event which is raised on DOM element, and then you call a function. So we are passing data or information from template to class. And then property binding. What property binding does, that it sets property of DOM element on the template with the property of a TypeScript class. Now, Angular does not have any two-way data binding. It is in Angular, a two-way data binding is actually combination of your event binding, your property binding plus event binding. So if you do P plus E, that is two-way data binding, and syntax of two-way data binding is a square bracket, and inside that these two bracket, and we call it banana in the box syntax. So what you see that if you hear that in two-way data binding, when you combine property binding plus event binding together, that is called two-way data binding in Angular. You can create your own two-way data binding. However, what Angular team has done, they have given you a default two-way data binding to work with that. Now, what is two-way data binding? Two-way data binding is like this. So, for example, you have here an input box. Understand that how two-way data binding is useful for you. Input box type equal to, let us say, number. Okay, so here I have an input box, and then what I want, that whenever a value changes in this input box, this height should be changed, and whenever I change height here, this value should change there. So what I'm going to do to create this two-way data binding, you will use the syntax like this: ng model equal to height. Okay, now to use this ng model, you need to import something here. Import forms module from Angular forms, and then since you are importing it, you need to pass it here also, forms module. Okay, so I just imported this forms module because we are using this ng module. It is part of that forms module. Now this input box and this height are in two-way data binding of each other. Whenever you change height, value in input box will be changed, and vice versa. Great. Now what I'm going to do, when you just click on that button, I'm going to say that, hey, this dot height equal to, we'll set it to 30, for example. By default it is 100. Okay, so now if we come back here, you see 100 is there because value of height is 100. Now as soon as you start changing this value, for example 500, you see that you are changing this value and it is going back and setting the value of height property, and then that height property is back to this button, which is changing the height to 500. And as you click on this, it will go back to 30 because we are setting that inside that click event. So this is how your two-way data binding works, where like you are passing data from property class to template and from template to property class. So we just learned these, we just saw that what is interpolation, what is event binding, what is property binding, and what is two-way binding in Angular. Okay. Next, again I'll give you a 2-minute break here. If you have any question, you can ask us. We have team of panelists. Which would love to answer your question. And next we'll go to component communication. Okay, so next what we are going to cover, how two components talk to each other in Angular. We call it component communication. Now in Angular, you can have so there are two scenarios. Scenario one, that two components are not related to each other. When they are not related to each other, they talk to each other through services. Because both, if they are using same service, they will have same object, same instance of the service, and they are working and they can talk to each other. Scenario two is that if two components are related to each other, means the example which you just saw, that we are using message component inside app component. So we could say app component is a parent component and message component is child component. So when two components are related to each other, they communicate with each other in various ways. Scenario one is that you need to pass data from parent component to child component. In that case, you will use input decorator. So for example, if I come back here, in message component, you see that we have this message, hello I am message. What if right now this is coming, this is right here in message component, but what if we want this data to come from parent component? We want this data to come from somewhere from here. So let us say if we have one data here called child title. So we want this child title to be passed in this MES. So how we will do that? To do that, what you need to do, take this MES and then you decorate it with something called input decorator. So when you decorate something with input, a property with input decorator, what you say that, hey, for this particular property, expect data to be set from outside this component. Great. So for message component, MES is a property and you set and you have decorated it with input decorator. So now you can set this here where you are using it. You remember MES was a property, so you need to use property binding, and you can say that MES equal to, and here it is child title. Okay, so what we are doing, we are setting this MES with the property of parent component, and if you remember, this MES has been decorated with input. So now if you see the output here, input decorator MES string, and let me see if you are able to pass this. MES, and let us get rid of this here app component child title. So app.component.html MES equal to, here it is, MES equal to child title. So here now if I go here, you see I am for child, that data is being passed from app component to child component. Second scenario could be that you want to pass data from child component to parent component. What does it mean? That go back to this message component, and in this message component, you have a button. Now when you click this button, what is happening? You are calling a function right here in the same component. What if you want to call a function of parent component on the click of the button on the child component? So let us say I have a function here called, say, parent hello, and we want to call this function on click event of this button. And how we'll do that? So to do that, let me just get rid of this hide thing. Okay, so to do that, what you need to do, you need to use something called output decorator and event emitter. So first, what you do, you create you need to create an event, and syntax to create that event emitter and output decorator is here you can say, and let us say that you say that say hello. We are calling that event name is say hello, hello event, say hello event equal to new event emitter. Okay, so here this event emitter being added here, and now we want to capture this custom event outside this class, so we decorate that using output. Okay, now when user clicks on this, what we want to pass this, we want to raise this event, so we'll say this dot say hello event dot emit. So in this way, what would happen that when user clicks in this button, we are emitting this event. If you want, you can pass data as well from here. Either you can pass normal string or single primitive types, or you can pass an object. I'll say that, hey, pass this height back. So I'll say this dot height. So here we are passing that height back, or let us take some another value here. For example, some string value. Child message okay, so I have taken this and we want to pass this back, so here we'll say this dot child message, and this, when user clicks on this button, this function, we will handle that particular event on the parent component. Now how we handle this? So this is an event, right? So this say hello event is an event. So go to app component.html, and for event you need to perform first event binding, and syntax for that is a smaller bracket, and on click of that on that event, which function we want to call? We want to call this function say parent hello. So here we'll say parent hello. Okay, and the syntax is that whatever data is coming, you can pass it like this event, and here we can say data and console.log data. So what we are doing, we are calling this function say parent hello on the button click of child component. For that, what we have done in line number 18, we created an event using new event emitter. Then we decorated that with output decorator, and then on click of that button, we are emitting that and passing data if what we want to pass. You can pass an object as well. So if everything is correct right here, see this click me button is part of your child component. We click that here, and Ignite UI is passed, and as you see in app.component.ts at 13, we are calling a function which was on the child which is on the parent component. So this is a second scenario where you are passing data from child component to parent component, and this is called and this is done using output and event emitter. So when you need to pass data from parent component to child component, you use input decorator. When you need to raise event from child component to parent component, you use event emitter and output decorator. The third scenario is for component communication. Third scenario is services, which we just talked that services are you use services when you use services when you need to when two components are not related to each other and you want to communicate between them. We may skip view child and component child. I'll show you a little bit of that, but let us first go on template reference variable. What template reference variable does, that if you want to call, so here I have a component called message, which is a child component, message component, and let us say it has a function called getFoo or something like that. Now I want to call this function. Now what I want to call this function childFoo, getFoo on the click event of the button of the parent component. To keep it simple, if you need to call functions or properties of child component in the template of parent component, you use template reference variable. I repeat, if you need to use functions and data and properties of child component in the template of parent component, you use template reference variable. If you need to use if you need to call functions or use data of child component in the class of parent component, then in that case you will use either ViewChild or contain child. Sorry, there's a mistake there. That was not component child, that is contain child. Okay, so again, try to understand it. It's a very important concept. Whenever you need to use properties and functions of child component in the template of parent component, you will use template reference variable. Whenever you need to use properties and functions of child component in class of parent component, you will use either ViewChild or contain child. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, and I have something called child message here, Ignite UI School. I'll go to app.component.h template, app.component.html, and let us say I have a button here. This button is saying that parent button, and what I want to call on this button, click this function getFoo. So to do that, what you need to do, you need to give a template reference variable to this component, child component. Let us say I'm calling it as app_m. That is the syntax has, and then whatever name you want to give. And here on the click of that, we'll say click app_m dot and getFoo. So in this way you can call function, and then again you have h3, and let us say you want to use this data, which is child message here on the parent component HTML. You will say app_m dot child message. So just you need to give a template reference variable name, and using dot you can use them on the HTML. So if everything is correct here, you see I'm getting here Ignite UI School, and then I have parent button. When I click on that parent button, you see child foo is being called from message.component.ts. So this is the third way you can make communication between two components. Now the same thing if you want to do, and you want to use these functions like child message and getFoo and everything in the class of app component. In that case, what will you do? You will use ViewChild. To work with ViewChild is very simple. First you need to do is you need to create a variable. Let us say ViewChild, and here you need to pass that component name, which is in this case message component. Okay, and you'll give any name. Let me just see syntax of. Again, so in this way you say ViewChild MES. Okay, and you see that in line number 14, I'm saying that the type of that ViewChild is message component. Now, what is difference between contain child and ViewChild? We may cover that in some other webinar. But as of now, you see that here what we are doing is we are saying that at a rate ViewChild message component, and type of this is message component. Okay, now here you have all ViewChild available in a component lifecycle called after view unit. So we will implement that component lifecycle. He'll say implements after view init. Okay, this is a component lifecycle hook, which again we are not covering in today's webinar, keeping time in mind, but you can learn about that in detail. So all your ViewChild is available to you in the ng after view unit lifecycle hook. So here what I have done, I have this message component. I imported that. Then I'm creating a ViewChild here. And now I can go here and say console.log and this.mes. You see that everything related to that ViewChild would be available to us. So here we are. Okay. And function F12. You see that app.component.ts message component is available to us, and everything, every property and every function of that message component is available to you right there. So here you see that child message, then height, and then MES, that it has the event, and everything. So now it is available to you. You can use it. You can use it the way you want to use it. So this is the fourth way of component communication. Again, just to summarize that if you need to pass data from parent to child, you will use input decorator. Okay. If you need to pass event from child to parent, then you will use output. Okay. When you need to access in template of parent, child functions and data, use temp ref variable. And if you need to use in class of parent child function data, then you will use either ViewChild or content child. We are not covering what is the difference between ViewChild and content child in this webinar, but both almost work same. So I hope, and if two components parent are not related to each other, then what you do, you cover service. You use service for that. So this is component, this is how component communication works. Again, I'll give you 1 minute break, and if you have any question, if you want to note down something, and then we'll go to understand that how directive works, and then I'll bring Ignite UI into the action. Great. So let us see that how a little bit of directive works and everything related to that works. So what I'm going to do here in app.component.html, let us get rid of everything here. We don't need this app message and everything as of now. Okay. And what I'm going to do in app.component.ts, let us say I need to display a lot of data. And for that, again, I'm just getting rid of all these things. Okay. And I need to display, let us say, a lot of data here, like I have some array and all. So here, what I'm going to do, I have a function called, let us say, get data. And in this function, I'm saying return a hard-coded array for me. So I have already an array I have taken from internet, which I'm going to return. So here I'll say return. Okay, it has product ID, product name, product code, and everything. Now, what do we want? We want to display this data, this array in a table. So for that, what we need to do, let us say, we will say that we have a local variable called products, and that is an empty array. And here we are saying that implements onInit lifecycle hook, and in ng onInit, okay, we'll say this dot products equal to this dot get data. Keep in mind, right now I'm hard coding this get data and everything is there, but it could come from its API and all that. But purpose is to show you how ng4 works. So here I have ng. So now I have this product inside these products. We have some data and we want to display that. To display that, go to app.component.html, and here what you can do, you can take a table. So what I've done, so I'll just copy paste a table here. Okay, so I have a table. In that table, just everything is normal HTML. The thing which you should focus is line number 16, where I'm using ng4 directive, and anything which you see starts with a star is a structured directive. So here I'm saying ng4 let p of products, and then using interpolation I'm displaying product ID, product name, product code, price, and star rating. So far so good, and you see that I have that thing is being added using in that table. Now, let me bring something here called Ignite UI. Now, you remember that Ignite UI is Infragistics library, which helps to build your application faster, which helps you to make a performance-oriented application. Now, assume that you have a requirement that, okay, this is a table here being rendered, and now you have certain requirements. Those requirements are, for example, that you want a pagination. Another example is that you want sorting, you want good UI, you want filter, you want many other things. You want virtualization and everything. How are you going to do that? Here I'm going to bring Ignite UI for Angular data grid for you in action. Now, how you can work with Ignite UI for Angular? There are many ways. Right now, I have an existing project, and I need to use Ignite UI in this. So for that, what I can do, how easy it is, I'll go here on my HTML, and here if you go to extensions, in the extensions you can search for Ignite UI for Angular. So we have created extensions for you, and here you have these two extensions, Ignite UI for Angular you need to search Ignite UI for Angular extensions and install in your application. For me, it is already installed. Once that extension is installed, what all you need to do, go to your template and see, open Ignite UI Angular toolbox. Here we are learning that how we can add Ignite UI for Angular in an existing project. One is that it is as simple as that. You can go here and see open Ignite UI for Angular toolbox. It is setting up Ignite UI for Angular toolbox for first time use. It will take some time, and it will open a toolbox for you, and from there you can select the control which you want, and just select that control, and it will create even code for you. Another is that you can use npm. So you can very much go here, and you can very much right here go and you say that, okay, I don't want to, let us say I don't want to use toolbox and I want to use npm. And there are just few commands which you need to follow to work with Ignite UI, to work with Ignite UI for Angular in your existing project. So here you can say npm install Ignite UI Angular. So it will install. So first you install Ignite UI Angular using npm. Once that is done, you need to install Hammer.js. So these are the steps which you need to follow. npm install Ignite UI Angular, then npm install Hammer.js. Then in Angular.json file, you need to add entry for Ignite UI Angular CSS and Hammer.js. Then in your style.css in step number 4, just import some material icon because Ignite UI Angular is based on that. And then in main.ts, import Hammer.js. Only these steps you need to do, and you should be able to start using any Ignite UI for Angular components in your application. So here I'm saying npm I Hammer.js. Okay. Once that is done, so here I'm saying that npm I Hammer.js, it will install Hammer.js. The time it is taking to install there, let me come back and show you something called Ignite UI CLI, which is very powerful. So assume that so far we have seen that, okay, how I can add Ignite UI in existing project. We are already working on a project and we want to add Ignite UI in that. So for that we used either we can use Toolbox or we can just do a couple of npm installation and we are good to go. But if you are creating a new project, we have something called Ignite UI CLI as well. You can read in detail about that and how easy it is to work with Ignite UI CLI. I'll come here. So here you see that you remember this, in this project we are using Toolbox. Here is the Ignite UI for Angular toolbox is for you. You can choose whatever you want from here, and as soon as you double click that particular control would get added. It will not only get added, it will get imported, the required module would get imported, your declaration or import array would get updated, and also if already dependencies are not installed, it will do npm install for you. I'm not doing that right now because we are already running some npm install here. We have already ran that on the same project, but it will do everything for you. So this is that simple. It will create simple code, simple reference code for you as well. It will configure everything just by clicking here. On purpose, I'm going to do that manually so that you know how much time it is going to save for you. So here you see that I installed so far what I have done, I have installed Ignite UI Angular, I have installed Hammer.js. So if you are using Ignite UI for Angular toolbox, all these steps are done for you just by clicking there. You don't need to do any of these things. That powerful is Ignite UI for Angular toolbox. Now what I need to do, I need to go to angular.json file, I need to modify this styles thing. So here I am, I'll go here and say angular.json, and here I'll just modify this styles. Once that is done, the next is that import in style.css. You have to import this. So here again in style.css, we'll come here and import this guy. Okay, and in last but not least, you have to import Hammer.js in main.ts. So go here and say main.ts, and here you can import Hammer.js, and you are good to go. Now you can very much use any of Ignite UI for Angular components. So here we'll say import Hammer.js. That's it. Now you see that right now what's happening is that if I go and run this application, and we saw that we had that table there. So it's taking some time to build this. Great. So here what now if I go back to this is our application. Now we want this data to be in a proper grid. And to do that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use Ignite UI for Angular grid. And to use that, right here in app component.html, below this table, I'm going to use this IGX grid true. Okay, we'll say that like as of now we are saying that auto generate true, and then so here is the products thing, and if you come back here in app.component.ts, in the products you have that data there. Okay, now to work with grid, you need to import grid here in app.module.ts. So we'll come here and say import IGX grid module, and then you have to pass that inside inside imports array. So here we'll say igrid.for root. So we have imported that, and here I'm saying that IGX grid data is products auto generate true. And if everything is correct, here I'll find let me see if I'm missing something here. Okay, so here we are. Let's refresh that page again. And here you see that we have that that data right here in the IGX grid. Now see that how easy it is. If you want to, let us say, create virtualization and you want to have some pagination, all you need to do is just set some properties here. Right here I can say auto generate true, and then I'll say height, for example, 300. I'm saying pagination true, and per page you show me only 2 data. So it will create this client-side pagination for me. And height property is very important because in IGX grid, as soon as you set the height property, it enables virtualization on that particular, virtualization on that particular grid. So here right now I have enabled virtualization, I have enabled pagination, and you see that pagination has been enabled. Now I have only 2 data. I can go there and data are coming. Now, right now I have auto generate set to true. What if I'll make it false and I want to configure column myself? You can configure columns. You can do everything, like you can have column template and everything. So here I'm saying that auto generate as false, and here I have configured columns where I'm saying there's field is product name, header is product name. You can have header template, you can have column template, everything. And then I'm saying this particular column is sortable. And let us say for star rating, for product date or product code, we are saying it's not sortable, so we are making it false. Now we have 5 different columns with some of them are sortable true, some of them are sortable false. And as soon as I go and run this, you see that here we have only those 5 columns there. For product name, sortable is working. Product price, sortable is working. However, for product code, sortable, for product code, sortable is not working because we made it false. Okay, so let me go and suggest we can see the output here. We'll say per page 20. Okay, so right now we can see all the data here. All the data is here. You see it is sorting on basis of product price, it is sorting on basis of product name and all that. So this is that simple to, you can add a grid in your existing application. And here you can keep learning about these features which are like kind of very simple to integrate in your application, and you can open that in Stack Bliss, play around and everything. These are the features available in grid, like virtualization, editing, paging, filtering, sorting, summaries, column moving, directly copying from Excel, and many things. Then we have another components like list view, combos, that different kind of chart and all. So I strongly request you to go and play around it. One thing which I would like to draw your attention is Ignite UI CLI. So what if you are creating a new project and you want to, and you know that you are going to use Ignite UI in that. In that case, I would request you that you should use Ignite UI CLI directly, and here we'll say IG new. Let us say, so for again, like Angular CLI, Ignite UI CLI, you have to install Ignite UI CLI, and then you can use IG command. So I'm saying IG new demo 1. Okay. So as soon as I ran that command, okay, so it has just created some project. Let me go and again create IG new, so let me go and create a command, create a new command, create a new project using IG. So I'll say IG new, okay. So it is asking me to give a name of the project. Let us say call it demo 1. I'll call it, let us say IG demo or something like that. Then Ignite UI has different flavor, right? Ignite UI can be used in jQuery, it can be used in React, it can be used in Angular. It is asking me whether I want Angular or jQuery or React. I'll say that, hey, I want that Ignite UI for Angular. Now Ignite UI for Angular has 2 flavors, and this is very important. You can use Ignite UI for JavaScript also in Angular project, and we call it Ignite UI for Angular wrapper. That has more than 200 controls, but you have to add jQuery dependency in your project. If you are okay with that, you can use that. But if you want to use native Angular components, then you go for Ignite UI for Angular, which is material-based native components, and that does not have any dependency on jQuery, and you can use Ignite UI for Angular option. I'm going to use Ignite UI for Angular, so I'll use arrow and I'll say Ignite UI for Angular. It is saying that whether I want to complete and run or add a component. I'll say, hey, add a new component for me. It is asking me which type of component you want. I'll say that, hey, add a grid for me. Here it is asking me, okay, grid, fine. Name grid, I'll say product. Okay, and again it is asking me same option. I'll say complete and run. Now what it will do, it will install and all the packages which is required, and it will have code added for Ignite UI controls and like grid, grid and scatter, grid and drawer, etc. The time it is taking, let me come back here and see that you can explore it here, all these components, and if you have any question, you can get back to me. So this is what I had today for the webinar. Last but not least, you may want to note down some important email addresses. So for example, you can download free trial of all our products on Infragistics.com. Feel free to download products from or any product. All trials are available, and give us feedback how you find them. You can find Ignite UI for Angular on Infragistics.com/product/Ignite UI Angular. Please use either Ignite UI CLI or use NPM or use Ignite UI for Toolbox. Let us know how you find it. If you have any sales related query, and if you are from APAC, you can send email to apaacsales@infragistics.com. If you are from India and if you have any sales related queries, you can send email to sales-india@infragistics.com. For any technical queries related to Ignite UI or this webinar, you can reach out to me at dkumar@infragistics.com. And if you have anything to say on Twitter, please use our Twitter handle Infragistics, and you can send tweet to me also. My Twitter handle is debug_mode. So let us go back here, and it will take some time depending on the internet to install NPM packages. We are already out of time here, and we see that many of you have many questions. We'll go through your questions, and when we write the follow-up blog post of this webinar, we'll try to answer your questions. You'll find recording of this webinar by next week, mid of next week. So please keep visiting Infragistics.com and Infragistics blog to find that. So we do a lot of blogging also here in Infragistics.com community blog. You'll find many articles related to many learning articles which may help you. And don't forget to check Infragistics.com where you will find everything. We keep doing these webinars, so so please keep joining us. And I hope you find today's webinar useful. So here it is saying that it is not able to run because it's already in use. Put 4200, but let me go and run this. So we gave that name. What name we selected? I guess we selected a name IG demo. So IG demo, and here I'll say ng serve, and let us say run it on port 4400. This application we just created using Angular, using Ignite UI CLI. And it will compile like normal Angular CLI project, and since we added a grid, and it already has a drawer added to that. So great. So here Webpack compiled successfully, and if you go to localhost 4400, we should have that. And as you notice that we did all live coding in this webinar, so here you see that all this code would be available to you. You see that this project got created using the IG new command only. And remember, we added that product, so here that product is added, all this code has been generated. Of course you can change it for your data source. It has routing, it has everything added here. So Ignite UI CLI is very powerful. Please go and check that also. So once again, everyone, my name is Dhananjay Kumar, and this is in front of you, these important email addresses. And thank you each one of you that you attended today's webinar. I hope it is useful for you, and I hope to see you soon. In next 2 minutes, we are going to stop the webinar. Thank you so much.